Hi, I'm Danyelle Campbell and we're here at Busby Ranch Quarter Horses in Millsap, Texas. And right now I'm going to go over hand positioning that I like to use when training and competing on a horse. And for me it's very basic. I try to keep everything as smooth and consistent as possible for my horse's sake. So I find a hand position that works very well for me, and if I ever need to adjust it a little bit on a certain horse, I will. But there's a few rules that I always go by, and I try to get students to do as well, because I truly feel that most horses are most comfortable when your hands are in this position. Rule number one, we all hear low hands, low hands. What I see when people think low hands is they want to drop their hands toward their knees. By doing this, watch what my elbows do. My elbows straighten. I personally do not believe in this riding style whatsoever. I always want a 90-degree turn in my elbow. For any of those of you who don't know geometry, it's shaped like an L, okay? Like a perfect bend, just like the letter L would be. So everything I do, I keep my elbows close to my body also. You're never gonna see me turning a horse by straightening my elbow, whether it be going out or going down. My elbows are my arms stay close to my body and stay bent just like this. Another thing that I really believe in that I try to teach people is never crossing your right hand over to the left side of the horse's neck. I see a lot of people trying to lift their horses or even counter arcing, and they do this to do it. They raise their hand and they cross it over their neck. And yeah, I'm getting my horse to move in the opposite direction, but for me, barrel racing is about body control and body positioning. The way I want my horse to move around a barrel is I want them to break in the rib cage, raise their front end, and drive from behind. In order to break in the rib cage, you have to use inside leg, and that's why I like to keep my hand on the same side of their body. So everything I do, you're gonna see my left hand stays right here. I'm gonna use inside leg pressure. I very rarely use my outside leg. So I use inside leg pressure to break this horse in the rib cage, and you can see her body is shaped like the letter C. Her hips to the inside of the circle, her nose is to the inside, but I have her moving forward. And when I say moving forward, it means I don't have her shoulders floating out. No part of her body is going to the outside of this circle. I'll show you the wrong way. Like sometimes if you use too much leg pressure, you get your horse doing that right there. You always want to make sure that their shoulders are up, but moving forward. You don't want them to the outside, you just want to raise them up. So again, inside leg pressure, inside rein. Now, without really moving my inside hand, which is my left hand whatsoever, and maintaining the same position, I'm going to apply leg pressure, keep my hand right here, and counter arc my horse this way. By doing this, I have her shoulder up and I have her rib cage bent, which means she's already in position for at any point for me to turn her around, okay? All of this is happening off of my body language and my legs. Notice that my left hand is, if at all, moving an inch. I feel this is important while turning barrels because the more drastic your movements go from as you approach a barrel, you're lifting and then you go here to turn, the more moves your horse is making. The more moves your horse makes, the more time it costs you. So I really believe I like my horses to do everything with my hands in the same spot and just move off my legs and get comfortable with how to move their body. I'm going to show you the right and wrong way now of which counter arcing is so you can see the difference in what her body's doing. And when I say that, I mean her shoulders and the front of her rib cage right here. I tell people all the time, you have two legs, use them, don't be afraid. I rode cutters for a long time, so I kind of know what it's like to use your legs, and I think as barrel racers, we tend to leave that very important part of horsemanship out. But I use my legs to make their face soft also, so that's the other important thing about using your legs. Like when I apply leg pressure, you can see I'm barely touching this inside rein. She's given her nose based off of my leg pressure. She just knows that they go together. When I use my hand, it means break in the ribs. When I use my leg, it means give your face. It's just one fluid motion for her. So back to the counter arcing. If I want to counter arc this horse the correct way, I'm going to keep my hand here. Notice my right hand is staying on the right side of her neck. I don't let it cross over the plane of her neck. She's being a little sticky with her feet, trying to figure this out. But you'll notice that her shoulder's up, her feet are moving forward, I have her rib cage bent. Now what I don't like to do is this right here. See how flat her body gets? And then if I go to turn, she has to totally regroup to make that turn because I don't have her broke in the rib cage. And I firmly believe that at some point a horse has to break in that rib cage to allow their front end to move around in a turn. So everything I do is about breaking it loose and keeping their weight up off their front end, because barrel racing is about forward motion, and to go forward, their weight has to stay off their front end. So when it comes to my hands, that's where I like to leave them. Again, just to reiterate, don't go too low. The further down, it's such a huge misconception that low, I mean, a broke horse, yeah, low hands will get their head down. But for the most part, when your hands come low, you're pulling down on the horse's bars, and a lot of horses will fight that pressure. It's painful. I like to work on the corners of their mouth. That's where I get the reaction that I like. So therefore, my hands usually stay right about waist length, right here, or waist height, sorry. And a lot of times, just to practice it for those of you at home who maybe aren't used to having your hands there, I will tell people, get some split reins so you have room, and literally get your thumb and put it in the top of your pants so you cannot move it, because you will move it. And learn how to control your horse in a circle right there. Like, I'm not gonna move this hand at all. Right now I'm using my inside leg to make my circle bigger, and I'm gonna take my inside leg out of her, use just a tiny, tiny bit of outside pressure just to say, hey, go ahead and turn this circle. But notice that she's just staying soft and round on her own. I'm not pulling this horse around one bit. She's turning, I'm just guiding her. I'm giving her something to follow, a guideline to follow, and she's soft enough that she's gonna do it. This is important to me. Every horse I own needs to be able to walk and trot these circles right here. But it only works if your hand stays in one spot. So if you're not real confident yet, or you're unable, like everybody, when their horse cuts in on these circles, if they don't have their hand set in one place, the first thing they want to do is use their hand to get them out. I mean, that's why it's important to put your hand here and trust your legs. Start to rely on your legs. Train yourself to use your legs to control this horse's body. Every time you get in their face, it takes time away from your pattern. You've got to learn to use legs. So soft, quiet hands in one position, and use your legs more, and that's going to make for faster, smoother turns and make your horse more confident. If your horse is wondering every step of the way what your hands are going to do next, he's not focused on his job. So keep your hands in just one position and learn how to use your body and train your horse accordingly to go off of those movements. But again, you can see she's just gonna walk these circles on her own. She's cutting in and taking short steps, so I'm gonna use my inside leg. You could see right when I did that, she gave her nose more. That's what I've taught her to do. Inside leg means to go ahead and drop and give your face. So keep your hands in the same body position, but more importantly, I'm gonna say, everybody has a different way to train a horse, and this is what works for me and what I find makes most horses happy. But the biggest thing is train how you're gonna run. I see so many trainers training one way, or even, you know, girls practicing. They do one thing with their hands when they're going slow and then do something totally opposite when they run. And that just is like throwing a curveball to your horse. Your horse has to have faith and confidence in what you're gonna do, and that's what allows you to have confidence in your horse. You guys need to become a team. So train for what you want your end result to be. And when I run barrels, I keep my hands here, and when it's time to turn, I generally am gonna bring my hand back towards my hip. And so that's how I'm gonna train my horse slow. And I do feel that that's the best way for me to get the body position that I want on a barrel horse. But if something works different for you, that's okay. But do the same thing in your slow work as you're going to do when you go fast. And it's gonna make a huge difference in your horse and your performance when you're in the arena.